Welcome to Talking IoT, a series of short, enlightening conversations on what's happening across the Internet of Things. I'm your host, Megan Lueders, CMO of Silicon Labs. Here with me to talk about the latest in smart city IoT technology is Landis+Gyr's Director of Product Management, Jeff Scheb. Welcome, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Megan. Good to be here.
Thank you. Well, Jeff, let's get right into it. I've got a couple of questions for you. The first is, what are the most exciting trends that you are seeing in smart city applications like smart metering today?
There's a lot of excitement right now in smart metering and what I'll call more broadly utility IoT. So kind of the application of IoT connectivity, to various smart grid applications, so making the grid smarter, more resilient, more efficient, et cetera. The first wave of smart metering got underway a number of years ago. And really that first wave is about done deploying now. So we're seeing some of the early adopters really starting a second wave of technology refresh and upgrades. And with technology advances, greater bandwidth available today, lower latencies, that promises to bring new benefits beyond just meter reading to really help enable a safer, more reliable, cleaner grid.
Great, and we hear it all the time too. We definitely know smart metering is high on the rise. But one of the other things we hear about it and why it's become more and more popular that are savings and efficiency gains that customers will begin to experience. How are you thinking about that and some of those benefits with not just smart metering, but even other connected technologies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, beyond just smart metering or kind of meter reading, and obviously we come from a very grid-focused standpoint in terms of Landis+Gyr, but it's really ultimately about managing the supply and demand for energy resources, keeping the grid balanced. A number of trends going on right now. We see, adoption of distributed energy resources, so renewables, essentially things like rooftop solar. You have people, purchasing more and more electric vehicles. You have extreme weather events putting strain on the grid and just behavior changes, right? After the pandemic, more and more people working from home, changing what consumption looks like in terms of power usage. And all of these represent challenges for, utilities, whether, municipal utilities, investor-owned utilities. And it's more and more of a challenge just to keep the grid balanced and essentially keep the lights on. So enabling this, real-time connectivity to smart meters, which are ultimately grid sensors, and other kinds of sensors, on the grid or elsewhere, it provides utilities and cities information, data that they need to better adapt and control the grid in real time and adapt to all of these different trends.
Yes, and as we record this, we're in the midst of summer, and you are right, we're experiencing all sorts of unique climate changes. And I do think there is such a wave of interest around metering and sensoring and how we're going to become more efficient, but also how we're going to accommodate these weather changes, these climate changes is just one small example. So great, and thank you for that. And another area that it triggered a question for me is around a standard that has become more and more commonly associated to this smart metering and how we think about this connectivity is around Ysun. And there's certainly a lot of buzz and momentum around it in our hallways at Silicon Labs as we've standardized on it, but also throughout the industry, I'm hearing more and more as it being a compelling open network solution for smart cities. Landis+Gyr, why did you decide to build solutions for Ysun? And I know you had other choices out there. How does it compare relative to those?
Yeah, no, great question. And for Landis+Gyr, we and others in this industry have used RF mesh technology for a number of years, and there's a number of advantages to that. But the real limitation to now has been it's all very proprietary. There wasn't one strong standard like there is with Ysun. What that led to was if a utility or a smart city wanted to have an interoperable network with different kinds of devices, multiple vendors, different applications, it really led to kind of custom hardware integrations, which add cost, add supply chain complexity and risk. But what Ysun enables is a true, interoperable network based on open standards, allowing for multiple vendors, multiple different devices, and truly enabling a multi-purpose network. There's other technologies out there within an IoT kind of low power, wide area network space, LoRa, for example, that are well suited for certain applications that may be, more infrequent in terms of data being pushed, the amount of data, the latencies required. For a number of the grid-focused applications, electric metering, distribution automation, things like that, you really need the bandwidth and the lower latencies that Ysun enables, as well as some of the inherent resiliency of a mesh network technology. So there isn't one single point of failure. Devices communicate to neighboring devices, and that lends a robustness to the overall network that's well suited for some of the grid-focused utility IoT applications.
Excellent. That's great. And again, yeah, we are very excited about the future because of the Ysun standard and also partnering with you on many of those instances. So maybe last question that we have time for, what are the most exciting IoT developments in IoT that we can expect over the course of the next year or two?
Mm-hmm. For me, just the fact that we're talking about now a handful of very strong, mature standards. So Ysun, cellular technologies like NB-IoT, LTE, Cat-M, LoRa, they're all different technologies that serve different use cases well, but we're kind of down to a handful, which really means we're enabling these interoperable ecosystems, which really foster innovation. You no longer have just a hodgepodge of different proprietary, wireless technologies here. So the fact that these standards are coalescing and maturing is something I'm excited about. I think the other kind of the next frontier in IoT really has to do with finding the balance between edge and cloud-based computing. So finding applications where, increased computing at the edge helps to preserve bandwidth on these, constrained networks, low power networks. In many cases is helpful. In other cases, you're going to want to, stream as much data to the cloud for, analytics, applying AI and ML. So I think really this convergence of edge and cloud and finding the right balance, to support given applications is kind of the next frontier in IoT.
I think you are absolutely onto something. We have talked so long about edge to cloud-based computing and forever have been speaking about interoperability. And it just seems like everything is converging. The time is right to truly experience this acceleration on all fronts, and in particular, the smart city solutions. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining today. Greatly appreciate your insights into smart city solutions and hearing how Landis+Gyr, your perspective on Ysun. For those joining to hear more about how IoT technologies are shaping the future of smart cities, we invite you to attend our IoT developer conference called Works With by going to workswith.scilabs.com. Thank you again, Jeff.